Okay, so I want you to picture a book. And when I say book, I really don't mean something you toss in your beach bag.
Right.
I mean a doorstop, a weapon. I'm holding it right now, and I think I might have pulled a muscle just lifting it. It's thick, it's dense, and it has a title that sounds like the absolute driest thing you could possibly imagine. The Modern Construction Handbook, 4th edition.
It definitely doesn't scream page turner, does it? It looks like a manual for people who, I don't know, really love screw threads.
Exactly. I opened this thing expecting, endless tables of insulation values or maybe some exciting diagrams of drainage pipes. And look, to be fair, those are in there.
Of course.
But here's the thing, and this is why I dragged you in today. This isn't just a manual. It's a manifesto disguised as a textbook. I started reading the intro, and suddenly I realized I wasn't reading about bolts. I was reading a philosophical argument about how we build our entire reality.
That's the secret of this book. It's really tackling a massive, silent shift that we are all living through right now.
A shift.
Yeah, we're moving from the era of the box, the standard 20th century skyscraper, the grid, the rectangle, to something completely different, something more organic, more complex, and strangely enough, something that looks a lot like the distant past.
That was the hook that got me. The idea that to go forward into the future, we're actually looking backward. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that. We're going to look at how these high-tech digital tools are bringing us back to a kind of pre-industrial craftsmanship. And because we have to, we'll get our hands dirty with the actual materials, the steel and the aluminum that make it all possible.
Because you can't understand the architecture without understanding the material. That's the core message here.
Right.
You can't just draw a pretty shape and hope it stands up.
Which brings us right to the first weird thing I noticed. I went to the table of contents expecting chapters organized by function. Chapter 1, walls. Chapter 2, roofs.
The usual stuff.
The usual. But instead, the very first section is just materials. Chapter 1 is steel. Chapter 2 is aluminum. Why organize it like that?
It's a very deliberate choice by the author. He's making a point right out of the gate.
Yeah.
In the 20th century, we classified things by function. A wall was a wall. But in modern building, those categories are they're breaking down. They're kind of obsolete.
Is that just semantics, though? I mean, a wall is still a wall. It keeps the wind out.
Is it? Okay, let's look at the concept of a rain screen.
Right.
You hear that term a lot. It's basically the outer skin of a building.
Right.
But what is it made of? It could be glass, it could be timber, aluminum, terracotta. If you just call it a wall, you miss the physics of it. The book argues that a rain screen is often just a decorative layer, while the structural frame behind it does all the heavy lifting. The material dictates how it behaves.
So treating a glass wall the same as a brick wall just because they're both walls is a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. And this leads to the book's big critique of modernism, the style that dominated the last 100 years.
The big glass boxes.
Those big, sleek glass boxes. Watts calls this the collage problem.
The collage problem. Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here. We built the entire modern world on those boxes. They seem to work pretty well. They keep the rain out. They stack people up. Why is collage a bad thing?
It's not that it's bad, but it's inefficient in a very specific way. Think about how a standard office building is made. You have a steel frame, that's one system doing the structural work.
Yeah.
Then you bolt on a completely separate skin, like a glass curtain wall. That's another system. They aren't really talking to each other.
So it's like wearing a suit of armor over a skeleton, but the armor doesn't actually help you stand up. It's just dead weight.
Precisely. The skin is non-load bearing. It's just wrapping paper.
Yeah.
But the vision this book lays out for the 21st century is different. It talks about mass customization.
That sounds like a marketing buzzword, mass customization, like ordering a custom color for your sneakers or something.
It does, but in construction, it means something revolutionary. In the 20th century, mass production meant making 1 million identical bricks or 1 million identical steel I-beams. That's how you made things cheap. Uniformity.
Right. If every piece is the same, the factory runs smooth.
But with digital tools, robots, CNC machines. A machine doesn't care if it cuts a straight line or a squiggly line. It doesn't care if every single piece is slightly different.
So you don't need to build a box anymore just to save money?
No. You can create unique parts that interact with the environment. You can have a building that changes shape to catch the sun. We are moving away from the collage of separate parts toward an integrated organism.
And this is where the deep dive took a turn I really did not expect. I'm reading about high-tech robots, and suddenly the text starts talking about Gothic cathedrals.
It's a fascinating connection, isn't it?
It's wild. I mean, when I think cutting edge, I don't usually think of the year 1200. I think of drafty stone castles. But the book insists there's a direct line between the digital age and the medieval mason.
Well, think about it. If you look at the structure of a cathedral, the text mentions Wells Cathedral specifically, what do you see? Do you see a steel frame with a separate stone skin hung on it?
No, it's all stone.
Exactly. The stone wall sweeps up and becomes the roof. The columns branch out and become the ceiling ribs. The wall is the structure. The ornament is the support. It's one continuous integrated stone organism.
No distinction between skin and bone.
None. So the Gothic builders achieved that unity that modernism lost. And now, thanks to digital tech, we can go back to that. The book calls it the return of the load-bearing facade.
Which means the outside of the building is actually holding the building up again.
Right. And because we can calculate the stresses on a computer, we can make those load-bearing skins incredibly complex. We aren't limited to thick stone walls anymore. We can make organic, flowing shapes where the skin and the structure are one.
The book gives some great examples of this bridge between old and new. It mentioned the Oxford Museum.
The Oxford Museum is a classic. You have hand-carved stone, which is very medieval, but then you look up, it's mixed with industrial iron ribs holding up this glass roof. It was this moment where craftsmanship met industry.
And then there's Gaudí. You can't talk about organic architecture without the Sagrada Familia.
Oh, absolutely. Gaudí is the godfather of this stuff.
Yes.
He was using brick and stone to create these complex load-bearing curves. He didn't have a computer. He used hanging chain models, literally hanging weights from strings to find the perfect structural forms.
And today we use parametric software to do exactly what he was doing intuitively.
We do. And what about Eero Saarinen's TWA Terminal?
Ah, one of my favorites. The concrete just flows. It goes from being a wall to a ceiling to a desk.
Yes. The structure becomes the furniture. It's seamless. That's the anti-collage. And that is what digital fabrication is trying to get us back to.
Okay, you dropped a term there. Parametric software. That word gets thrown around a lot. Parametric design. The book has a whole section on it. Can we just demystify that? Because let's be honest, it sounds like a magic computer button that fixes bad ideas.
It can feel like magic, but it's actually just logic.
Yeah.
Let me give you an analogy. Think about the difference between Microsoft Paint and Microsoft Excel.
Okay, I'm with you.
In traditional CAD computer-aided design, it's like MS Paint. You draw a line. You say, this wall is 10 meters long. If you want to change it, you have to erase it and draw a new one.
Right. It's just digital drafting.
Parametric design is like Excel. You don't draw the wall. You define the relationship. You say, this wall must always be half the length of the floor area. Those are the parameters. So I change the floor area number. The 3D model of the wall updates automatically.
So you're building a system of rules, not just a drawing of a building.
Exactly. And this allows you to manage incredibly complex geometries. The book uses Federation Square in Melbourne as the case study here. Have you seen pictures of this place?
I have. It looks chaotic, like a fractured puzzle someone dropped on the floor. It doesn't look like it has a grid at all.
But it does. It uses a pinwheel grid. It's based on fractal geometry. 5 small triangular panels fit together to form a larger triangular shape. It's a repeating pattern, but it looks random.
And the text called the blueprints for this a kit of parts.
That's a key phrase. Kit of parts. Because nothing was standard, they couldn't just give the builders a normal plan. They had to create drawings that looked like instructions for a giant model airplane. Every panel had a code.
That sounds incredibly expensive and a nightmare for the contractor.
In the 20th century, it would have been impossible, or at least bankruptingly expensive.
Yeah.
But this is the mass customization point again. If the computer generates the file and a laser cutter cuts the panel, it doesn't cost extra for the panel to be a weird triangle instead of a square.
The constraint isn't make it simple for the factory anymore. The constraint is, can you organize the data?
Exactly. That is a huge shift. But, and here's the reality check, no matter how fancy your software is, you still have to build the thing out of atoms. You can't do it as simulation.
You need stuff.
You need materials.
Yeah.
And this is where the handbook really shines.
Okay, let's dive into the nitty-gritty. The book spends a lot of time on steel. We all know steel. It's the backbone of the modern world. But I learned some things about the physics of steel that, well, I thought were wrong when I first read them.
Steel is fascinating because it's the benchmark. In the text, they list the Young's modulus for steel.
Young's modulus. Sounds like a sci-fi villain.
It's just the technical term for stiffness. How much does it bend when you put weight on it? And the book points out something that trips up Almost everyone. Young's modulus is constant across almost all grades of steel.
Wait, pause there. That sounds wrong. If I'm paying a premium for high-strength steel, surely it's stiffer.
You would think so, right? But this is one of those fundamental laws of physics. Strength and stiffness are two different things. Strength is how much weight can I hold before I snap. Stiffness is how much do I bend when you stand on me.
So the expensive steel can hold a massive truck without breaking.
It won't break, but it will droop just as much as the cheap steel while holding that truck. And that drives architects crazy. You might have a super strong beam that's perfectly safe, but if it deflects 2 inches, your glass windows might pop out.
That is wild. So you can't just buy your way out of a bouncy floor with better steel. You just need more steel.
Essentially, yes. Geometry beats grade. But there's another distinction the book hammers home. Hot-rolled versus cold-rolled.
I honestly thought those were just marketing terms.
It's all about heat and stress. Hot-rolled steel is what you use for the big stuff, those giant H-beams and skyscrapers. They roll it while it's over 900 degrees Celsius. It's like red-hot dough. But here's the catch. As it cools, it shrinks.
So it's not precise?
Right. You can't get perfect millimeter accuracy because the metal moves as it cools. Cold-rolled steel, on the other hand, gets processed again at room temperature. It's squeezed through rollers cold. This makes it incredibly strong and gives it that shiny, smooth, precise finish.
So if I see a sleek, shiny metal partition wall in an office, that's probably cold-rolled.
Almost certainly. But there is a trade-off. When you roll steel cold, you are stressing the internal grain structure.
So the metal is tense.
Literally. It has internal stresses locked inside it. If you cut a cold-rolled section, or if you heat it up later, welding, sometimes it can actually warp because you've released that tension. But you get those crisp, sharp corners that architects love.
Speaking of aesthetic steel, we have to talk about the bird's nest, the Beijing National Stadium. The book uses this as the ultimate example of digital fabrication meeting heavy industry. It just looks like a tangle of twigs. A standard I-beam doesn't do tangled twig.
No, it doesn't. And this is the crazy part in the source text. They used twisted box sections, but they made them from flat plates. They took flat steel plates, curved them, and then welded them together into these twisting, curving box shapes.
Wait, so every single one of those twisting beams was made from flat sheets welded together?
Yes. It's a perfect example of developable surfaces shapes you can unroll flat. It required massive industrial welding, but the geometry was entirely controlled by parametric software. It's the medieval mason's complexity achieved with heavy industrial steel.
That is incredible. But steel isn't the only player. The book contrasts it heavily with aluminum.
Aluminum is the lightweight contender, about a third of the weight of steel. But its superpower, according to the handbook, is extrusion.
I used to think of that Play-Doh factory toy. You squeeze the handle and the star shape comes out.
That is literally the analogy. You can push heated aluminum through a die and create incredibly complex shapes, fins, window frames with little grooves for gaskets, snap-fit connectors. You can't really do that with steel.
But it's softer, right? I feel like if I lean against a soda can, it crushes.
It is softer, and the book gives this really visceral comparison. It says if you kick a steel panel, you'll probably hurt your foot. The steel won't care. If you kick an aluminum panel, you'll dent it.
Okay, so don't kick the building. Got it.
But consider a real-world scenario. Let's say a car reverses into the wall of your building at 5 miles per hour. The aluminum panel will dent locally. It absorbs the energy. A steel panel might be so stiff that the whole thing buckles.
That's a nuance I never would have thought of. The soft material might actually save the rest of the wall by taking the hit.
Exactly. But then you have the fire issue. Aluminum has very poor fire resistance compared to steel.
So it's always a trade-off.
Always.
Now, we can't talk about construction in the 2020s without talking about the environment. The book takes a pretty interesting stance here. It's not just about solar panels on the roof.
No, it introduces the concept of embodied energy. This is crucial. We focus on the energy bill. How much gas does it take to heat the building? But embodied energy is the energy it took to dig the ore, smelt the steel, transport the beams, and assemble them.
So a building might be efficient to run, but if it took a massive amount of carbon to build, it's already in debt.
Correct. And this brings us back to that idea of the organism. The book talks about growing a building out of its context. Instead of bulldozing a site and dropping a generic box on it, digital tools let us scan the environment and build a shape that fits perfectly.
Connecting skin and structure again?
Right. If you use less material because your structure is optimized, like a bone is, you reduce the embodied energy. It's about using that mass customization to be responsible, not just flashy.
There's a beautiful irony in all of this that I keep coming back to. We're using the most advanced technology humanity has ever created, computational design, robotics, to basically get back to the joy of making.
It is ironic, but it's hopeful. The Industrial Revolution took the uniqueness out of building. It gave us the assembly line. The digital revolution is giving us the uniqueness back. The robot is the new apprentice.
So we started with a handbook that looked like a doorstop, and we ended up with a vision of digital Gothic. We've gone from the collage of the 20th century to the integrated organism of the 21st.
And that really changes how you look at a city.
It does, and that's where we'll leave you today. The next time you're walking past a construction site or you look up at a steel beam or see a building with a weird twisting shape, ask yourself, is that a collage? Is it just layers wrapped around a frame? Or is it an organism? Is the skin doing the work?
And remember the thought the book leaves us with. We are moving toward a world where the discipline of straight lines might disappear. If robots can build anything, the constraint isn't what is cheap, it's what is responsible.
A heavy question for a heavy book. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us. We'll catch you on the next one.